see. Are we live? We may or may not be live. I am going to check. How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the first Trash Heap podcast. Oh, we are live. Or may not be live because I am getting echo. Okay, so we are live. We are live. Excellent. All right, everybody. Welcome to the first Trash Heap podcast. Let's see. Today I have with me Goth Beezy. That's how you say it, right?
Yes, Goth Beezy, or you could just call me Beezy.
Beezy, I love that. Yep. So you're a goth. You're a mom. You're a Twitch streamer, photographer, YouTuber. Recently, you've assembled these sort of like menagerie, like these goth menagerie style videos of all these different people kind of delivering one broad video essay, which with each person kind of tackling different chunks. Those have been great. They've been ranging from, there was the Goth Guide to Fighting Fascism. You had one diving into the oxymoron of the Goth Red Pill. So, that Goth Red Pill topic, we'll be diving into that today. But first, BZ, can you tell me a little bit about your process for assembling these videos?
Yeah, so the first one was, I've only done two so far. The first one was the oxymoron of the Red Pill Goth. And basically what I did, it was a big learning process, because basically what I did is I reached out to all my favorite, very political goth mutuals. And I said, I have this idea. Do you guys want to be a part of it? And basically we just started a group chat and went over and discussed all of our different topics on what we want to do and what we each specifically can bring to the videos. It's definitely a process. Sometimes the videos start out with like 20 people a part of it. We'll lose some in the process just because life happens or someone ends up being a little problematic that we weren't aware of until we find out later. But yeah, that's basically how it goes. I just had this idea and I am lucky enough to know a lot of goth mutuals on Instagram.
Absolutely. Yeah. It seems like you're really connected in the goth community. At least from the outside looking in. Right. And then, when we announced this stream, what initially drew me to your content was I was just mindlessly doom scrolling, right? And I see this sort of like call out video you do of these 4 quote unquote goth girls. I don't know if you can give more I think you know what I'm talking about. I think you might be able to explain it better than I can.
Yeah. So they are called the Goth House. And they're basically just like the male gaze, like a perfect example of the male gaze of what they want goth to be. And, they do OF content and stuff like that.
Yeah. Certainly catering themselves to this increasing wave of conservative infiltration of goth culture.
Right.
And then, Goth House, at least they seem to be flesh and blood humans, but a lot of these over-sexualized videos of, quote unquote goth girls are actually artificially generated, and you've seen some kind of fake agit prop from the right wing using these kind of videos, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of AI too, like especially from the conservative men. And there's not so much of it on Instagram. I know there is a lot on there, but I'm on Facebook as well. And it is absolutely insane because these are the same men that hate me, but they fetishize like what I am. Because like every time I open my mouth on Facebook, they're just like, fucking liberal and you're a disgusting Democrat and goth is not this. And then you'll see them on these fetishizing goths comments like, oh, I love goth so much, I wish I could be with a goth. I'm just like, bro,
Facebook is kind of ground zero for disgusting repressed
Oh,
men. It's kind of ground zero for
yeah.
AI slop.
Yeah. 100%.
I stay far away myself personally, but all this
Yeah.
kind of begs the question. I think we can agree that goth culture is antithetical to conservatism, but
Hmm.
when we were kind of having that conversation, there was a conversation happening in the comments section when we announced this stream, where
Hmm.
some people were saying, if you're Christian, that doesn't necessarily make you a goth, or that makes you not a goth. Like, they are incompatible. And I don't know about you. I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm not a goth, so I don't feel like it's necessarily my place to say, but I'm
Right.
curious what your perspective on that might be.
Um, you can be Christian and be goth. Even Catholic and goth. Any religion, really. As long as you're not like shoving it down others' throats or like Christian nationalism or any like especially Christianity, because I grew up Christian myself and Mormon. Um, I have this really negative outlook of Christianity just from what I was raised in. So I feel like people do get really caught up in that negativity of Christianity and they forget that real Christians do exist, not Christian nationalists. Like the Christians, goths that I know, they are genuinely like some of the best people I know, and they say it's more of like not following religion rules, but having that connection with their with their God or their faith, and they don't really push it onto others or act out as if like, oh, you're gonna go to hell because you wear this and that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's very possible. A lot of the goth like inspiration is like the Catholic and Christian um, architecture. Like we absolutely, there is a connection to it. The crosses and everything.
Yeah, so you actually released a video kind of talking about your Christian and specifically interesting relationship with Mormonism.
Yeah.
Kind of, it seemed like you were kind of shifting in and out of it,
Mm-hmm.
or your family was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
did you, you said that left you with a lot of negative outlook on Christianity, but do you think kind of like dealing with those symbols that have influenced goth culture, has that kind of helped redefine your associations with it in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of like bringing like my power back to it in a way, you know? I also like my partner, he's Christian, but he has explained Christianity to me in a whole different light that I have never seen. And I was just like, I've never viewed it that way. And I am like now I'm like a hardcore atheist. So like I went from, super Mormon Christian to atheist. So for me it's hard to feel like I can find faith in a deity or something of any sorts, of any religion. But he has actually really opened my mind because I was just so shut off on like I hate Christian. I hate religion. Like, I mean, in religion as a whole, like trying to control, and there is that aspect of it. But I think sometimes you can separate from the religion aspect and have it more as a personal spirituality type thing.
Yeah, a lot of goth seems to be against, the establishment. So,
Yeah.
so
Yes,
you can be
exactly.
against the establishment of, oppressive church ideology
Hmm.
without dismissing the spiritual
Yeah.
side. So
Yes,
I
exactly.
actually wonder, in your words, what makes a goth?
What makes a goth? An outcast, someone who doesn't necessarily fit in with societal norms, anti-establishment, anti-capitalism, very um, I want to say very like justice, like a flame under your ass for for justice, just like a very political type person.
Hmm.
I mean, just the look itself is completely going against societal norms. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
And where would you say, would you say these politics have always been with goth culture? Like, where do they kind of originate from?
Yeah, so goth like basically broke off from punk in the 70s. It kind of has a different sound with the music. Punk is very, and goth is more like very, like a kind of a, you can still dance to it, but it's like very, it's a different, darker type of music. But because it like broke off from punk, it brings that political ideologies to it with it.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
now we're seeing something that's a little antithetical to those, you know, political roots and those political principles.
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, can you tell me a little about who Jake Monroe is? And real quick, Jake Monroe, I hope you're
Yeah.
watching right now.
Hi. Yes. So Jake Monroe, he is a goth. I say goth with quotation marks. He is a goth influencer who is red pill driven. Um, there's this really good deep dive on YouTube about him. It's about 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
He didn't start out that way, which is really interesting. He was more about vlogging and talking about personal things, and then once him and his relationship with Kaya kind of, or Toxic Tears kind of separated, he started his, I think the reason was he lost majority of his followers. So he had to kind of create his own, this is who I am without Toxic Tears. And he just went the misogynistic red pill route. As of right now, I do think he is the biggest red pill goth influencer. I have yet to really see much others.
He's carved out his niche. I mean,
Yeah.
grifter's gonna grift.
Yeah, very much. Yes, grifter is another great word to describe Jake Monroe.
Yeah, absolutely. Just I didn't even realize that the idea when I first heard the term red pill goth, I thought that was something that people were disparagingly calling him, and then I
Yeah.
realized that was just something he was out and proud calling himself.
Yeah,
So
100%.
it he just seems to be just kind of the figurehead of
Yeah.
this effort to infiltrate goth culture and give these very misogynistic ideals. He claims that he wants to get politics out of goth, like get all this apolitical shit out of my
Yeah.
culture. But I think you've pointed out there's an irony to that.
Yeah, very big irony. Every time I see, let's not make goth political, and then he's like, goth is red pill. I'm just like, do you not hear yourself?
Yeah. I mean,
Do you rewatch your videos? Like, what? That doesn't make sense. If you don't want it to be political, well, don't make it red pill.
yeah, exactly. Especially when you take like a far right stance and you're claiming that you're just not
Yeah.
in it doesn't make any sense. But where would you say this sort of broader movement of conservative Gothism is coming from? And do you believe it really has traction?
I, you know, unfortunately, like, it's hard to say when it really started to infiltrate. I feel like when, like, somewhere around, it just became, like, goth kind of blew up online, I would say around, like, the COVID times. And I feel like it got watered down because people were just doing to dress for the aesthetic. And I feel like Jake Monroe himself is an outcast even within his own political party, and he probably has always felt drawn to this aesthetic, but just couldn't like morally stick with it really. And it's just interesting to see it start to get so big because we used to get so bullied for it, you know. And on Facebook, that is where he thrives. Like either his YouTube, because there's this group called Goths Against Cancel Culture, which I did do a video on as well. And he is very prominent in that area, and there's like 30K people in that group, and it just keeps growing every day, and they love him, and so it does seem like that it is catching a lot of traction.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
You know, you
Yeah.
kind of talk about this watering down, and beyond
Hmm.
just, you know, the Jake Monroes and the grifters of the scene, you know,
Hmm.
we've got stuff like the Sheen Chokers. You know,
Yeah.
we've got stuff like AI Goth Dommy Mommy Slop.
Yeah.
All this, you know, all this stuff coming in at once into the culture, watering it down,
Hmm.
filtering it into something, you know,
Hmm.
monetizable
Yeah.
on social media. So
Yep.
why do you think some people are deliberately kind of feeding into this, like the Goth House, for example?
Yeah. The Goth House, I think they saw that it was gaining traction and that people are starting to like the idea of a goth girl. And I mean, even from when I was young and I saw like gothish girls, you know, like the Hex girls or Raven, like I feel like I related to them. And, you know, I think it's normal for people to be like, oh, yeah, they're attractive. Like it's very normal to be attracted to something. But, they took advantage of that and they just rolled with it. They make so much money from these men who want to fetishize the goth subculture without really knowing what it's about.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people have even said in their defense that, you know, some of the talking points against that resemble like anti sex work talking points.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so I am fully supportive of sex workers. I think women or anyone who does sex work deserves to be safe and protected. It is real work. I think the issue, because it can kind of overlap. I actually have a video in editing right now about this specific topic, like the whole video just about it. It's the issue is the when you start to over fetishize it and use it for money. When you're just goth and you're a sex worker, then you're just a sex worker. But when you're like this absolute grifter, just taking advantage of it, that's when there's a problem. And like just completely representing the subculture incorrectly.
Absolutely, absolutely. I, you know, what it kind of reminds me of is now this may sound like a weird point, but
Hmm.
there's a species of Australian jewel beetle, um, and what they find attractive in their mates just happens to resemble beer bottles that were left in their environment, except to a
Oh,
hyper
interesting.
specific degree. It becomes a
Hmm.
hyper stimulus,
Huh.
what they call it. And
Interesting.
these beetles are try and mate with the beer bottles instead of actual real flesh and blood, you know,
Right.
beetles.
Yeah.
And what it reminds me of is, you know, we've got some really lonely people out there who, instead of, you know, going for something real, they're drawn to something that is completely fake, completely
Yeah.
exaggerated, you know,
Right.
over sexualized, over
Yeah.
fetishized.
Right.
And it almost, it's a little disgusting. It's a little
Yeah.
disgusting. You know, I think
Yeah.
the
It
reason
is.
I draw the beetle analogy is just looking for
Hmm.
some kind of rationalization. But truthfully,
Right. Right.
I don't know
Well,
why
that makes
someone
sense.
would choose like to talk to an AI goth girl chatbot over a flesh and blood person, you know, besides the
Right.
fact that they're misogynistic and obviously don't know how to
Right.
talk to women. That probably explains it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And like I said earlier, these same guys that are so rude to me in my comment section just absolutely love those girls and the AI. And it's just because they're saying like the most nastiest sexually explicit things and I'm just like holy, what? I mean, maybe in your personal life, but just showing that to even like platforms where children can be on. I think Instagram allows 13-year-olds and up on there. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
kind of just, yeah,
It's
I was
pedophilic.
reading there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Not
And
surprising coming.
I'm all about sexual, empowerment and liberation, but I feel like they are purposely catering to the male gaze and to younger people.
Absolutely. And, kind of to dive more into the specifics of that,
Hmm.
there's many influences on goth culture, of course,
Hmm.
from, music to, gothic
Yeah.
fashion, of the Victorian age, all this different stuff.
Yeah. Hmm.
Philosophy, literature, but one of the influences was BDSM culture. But as you
Yes.
said, these influences are slowly being twisted into something that
Hmm.
caters to the male gaze. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it possible to untangle these kind of influences that went into the culture from what they've kind of become?
Yeah. It's hard to say if it will be. I am actively trying. I think it's really hard to because there's just so many people who see goth as just an aesthetic. It's so hard to speak up and um really get that rhetoric back to what it's back to what it's supposed to be. And I think there's probably always going to be fetishization with the especially with AI and the world, but I think it's important to continue to educate and be as loud as you possibly can about it. That way, because people will see it, and I do think if they have a good head on their shoulders, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I can see that," and you'll reach. It's like a domino effect. So hopefully, in time, we can. I have been seeing a lot of purity culture within the goth community as well,
Ooh,
which is really interesting. I think it's because, but personally, I think it's because we're seeing all these very over fetishized goth uh, characters, let's say, and then we get harassed. So I feel like it's easy for us goths to be like, fucking just stop. Like, and I think they kind of you go from one extreme to another, and I think goths are kind of fed up, which is kind of turning them to have this like purity mindset, which is also not very goth, right? So
right,
it's an
right.
interesting it's an interesting mix because when I posted those videos, I got a lot of anti sex work comments, and I was like, no, it's not the sex work that's the issue. It's what they're how they're portraying us. And I don't know, it's interesting.
You know, that's part of why I invited you on the
Yeah.
podcast today, because I'm
Right.
I'm trying to figure out why. And
Yeah.
there's kind of two different frameworks, I suppose, I have in my mind for
Mhm.
trying to understand what the heck is going on with red pill goths. And I guess just to start with one of them,
Mhm.
this was kind of mentioned in your video that it's symptomatic of the
Mhm.
wider global shift to the
Yeah.
right.
Mhm. Yep.
Now, one of the contributors to your video on the Goth Guide to Fighting Fascism mentioned how
Mhm.
all across Europe, there are being very popular proposals that are gaining traction for
Mhm.
variants on ICE style secret police.
Yeah.
And we also see it in the culture, from the prevalence of looks maxing, and
Mhm.
just the bleeding in, even with purity culture. One thing I find interesting is people still find a way to fetishize it with the ideal
Mhm.
of the trad wife.
Yep. Mhm. 100%. And nuns even?
Oh, yeah, yeah. those get even those get heavily sexualized. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but you know, so one of the contributors did mention, it might just be kind of a sign of a global shift to the right. Do you have any ideas on why that shift might be happening?
I think because, it's become so normalized in America, especially Trump in office, when he first arrived, I think people started becoming less scared to hide that they're racist and just misogynistic and awful, and they have this white privilege, I'm better than you type of ideas. Um, and I really think that everything just got so normalized. And these things, the problem is these awful things are happening, and there's not a lot stopping it. So it's like the more that it happens, the more it becomes normalized. And I think we're seeing it everywhere now. It's just like what are we gonna do about it?
Yeah,
It's
this is
growing.
kind of a tangent, but a lot of
Mhm.
awful things, not a lot happening to stop them. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure you've been following the story of the flotilla, you
The
know,
flotilla.
and I actually, you know, I saw a perspective from someone coming
Mhm.
out of Gaza where they said, there's a
Mhm.
near 100% chance that, this is not going to be able to deliver aid to us.
Right.
Would it be a better use to donate it to humanitarian societies that are already doing work inside of Gaza?
Mhm. Right.
But also, at the same time, like, is that all our option is to just throw money and hope Israel lets
Hope
aid
for
get
the
through?
best.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I think I think sending it um directly to them is probably our best bet, but they still don't have a lot of stuff there themselves. Um so sorry, I'm trying to find my just trying to see if I could pin it. Oh no, it won't let me pin it still. Just because you reminded me of the Palestine.
I was actually
the
about to mention, so
Yeah, I was like,
I'll give
it's
the spiel to everybody watching. Dr.
yeah.
Bara is a pediatrician from Gaza who has been unable to serve as a pediatrician because all the pharmacies have been bombed.
It's terrible.
And then little Hamza, just the cutest little boy. I mean, he's been suffering from convulsions. He's been near death several times. The family goes hungry, and just, you may look at the GoFundMe and you'll see like $2,000 raised or something like that. All that money has already been spent.
It
It's
goes so
so
fast.
expensive there. They don't have anything right now. So if you're able to click that link, please do. And
Yep.
actually, I'm gonna drop it in the trash heap stream as well.
Nice. Yes, I got mine pinned.
Oh, awesome.
So if everyone here watching, I have it pinned on my chat as well.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, when it feels so powerless, how
hmm
would you say a goth can fight fascism?
I think kind of earlier, like I said, it depends. It really depends where you're at and what your capabilities are. My in my part about the video, I went over different ways that you can be an activist. And personally, for me, it's using my platform and educating people, bringing awareness, and bringing the community together. We also have a few mutual aid chats that are run by Goths, and we consistently share mutual aids when we can and help out when we can. I hate feeling powerless, against the entire system. And um, I've always been that way since I was really young. I just always was very against like everything. So this feels very natural for me to do. But if you're just starting out, I really would just start with who you follow, honestly. I unfollowed all the goths that were, not political. I started unfollowing big creators that wouldn't say anything. Then I started paying attention and commenting on posts, like starting to bring awareness myself and make my own videos and um, just start talking with other mutuals.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. That's a
Hmm.
great answer.
Yeah.
If you'll excuse me one moment, I'm going to grab a cup of tea.
Right. Hello, everyone. Hi, chat. I guess this gives me time to say hi to everybody. Hi, guys. I didn't get to say hi. Chrissy Mac, hello. Thank you for the lurk. Animal, hey, Nunya. Hi, Nunya. Dusty. Hello,
I'm
hello.
curious, how many people do we have in the stream on Twitch?
It's not telling me for some reason. I'm gonna refresh it. I feel like we should have at least 13 is my usual 13,
Oh, that's
14.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
I didn't I didn't post yet on because I'm gonna post right now though.
Hi, everybody. We're having so much fun here. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes. Coffee Steve, welcome. Oh, okay, we got 17.
Oh,
17
17.
people.
Wow, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, my Twitch views are pretty I try to be as consistent as possible. That's what really keeps the numbers up. But I do talk a lot about politics usually while I'm streaming. Okay.
yeah, but
Perfect.
back on the point of
Yes.
kind of finding your role in activism, definitely
Mhm.
who you follow, I think, is a huge
Mhm.
thing. Another thing is
Mhm.
kind of pointing out like who you are, what role you play. And in the
Yep.
beginning of your video, you kind of had that chart of
Yeah.
the different, I wish I could pull it up, the different roles
I
that
know.
activists can
The
play.
social map. Yeah. Mhm.
And I was curious, how would you kind of identify on the map?
I really like the caregiver part. There was a what was it called? I think it's just like a basically like like a you use your voice to educate. I feel like that's one that I fall under. I didn't go too much into it in the video because short time with all. I didn't want it to be like 4 hour long video. But I feel like I am like very much a nurturer and a just a voice on the online community. I used to, before I had kids, I used to go out and protest. But now I've been diagnosed with like endometriosis and I'm in a lot of chronic pain a lot of the time. So I mainly stick inside. Um, but yeah, I really just, I have to, here, let me see if I could, I have it. Let me pull it up. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It is wonderful, how,
Yeah.
even, becoming a mom and having this onset of chronic pain, you are still able to use your voice and lift it up.
Right. Right.
And lift it up to a degree that, you even got Jake Monroe hating on you, so you must be doing something
Yeah.
right.
Have to be doing something right. I mean, even Goths Against Cancel Culture, they used to post about me a lot, and then I made my YouTube video, and I don't know if they stopped or if they just blocked me. I can't see. Let me see. Oh, that's not my script. See, I have everyone send me. I create like a folder, and then I have everyone upload to the folder. You'd be surprised how much of a process it is.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure. I'm sure.
where's mine? The heck? Busy, busy.
I mean, it is part of the,
There we go.
greatness of those kind of menagerie style videos, though, is just seeing how many
Yeah.
different, goths are out there,
Mm-hmm.
against this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. And There's been a few hiccups, with making these videos. It's just a learning experience. I am going to continue to make more. Um, and you'll probably start seeing a lot of the same people in these videos, but I'm also still going to try to reach out and bring more people in, to expand, you know, to get a bigger reach around just, as far as we can get it so people can learn and understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah, yeah, and trying to make sense of the world is one of the things that I am attempting to do on this podcast that we're
Yeah.
launching here. So,
Hmm.
for those who are more familiar with Beezy's work, us on Trash Heap, we kind of take a esoteric leftist political lens to a lot of current issues, inspired a lot by ideas of not necessarily supporting or agreeing with concepts of acceleration, but analyzing how, feedback loops do appear to be spinning up. And,
Hmm.
one of the things I find very interesting is this sort of, it seems like there are some sort of feedback loops going on within the goth culture that
Right.
enable, the proliferation of these kind
Hmm.
of conservative and disgusting, ideals that, just kind of encroach on everything.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
I don't know how to describe it specifically, but it feels like I'm really sorry. There's some noise going on in the background.
You're
I'm getting
okay. You're
distracted.
good.
But
You're good.
here, Peter, you want to talk about Baudrillard for a second? My roommate's in the room.
What?
You want to
Oh,
talk?
nice.
Drafted to talk about Baudrillard?
Yeah. So um, I think to explain the
So,
more dense philosophy, we've got the guest appearance from another member of Trash Heap, my roommate and friend Peter. So we're
Hello.
talking about how kind of Baudrillard and ideas of feedback loops driving the proliferation of stuff like AI, goth, dommy, mommy slop on the internet.
I think that's a really interesting example. I like that a lot. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of it is about how, like, there's the real world that we can't access, right? We basically only have mental maps of how things like function in the world. And
Yeah.
in like normal society, pre-internet, everyone like kind of understood that what they got was the simulation. The simulation, the map, showed you just an image of reality that you didn't have access to. But like with the advent
Right.
of the internet and like mass communication, people weren't able to identify the simulations being presented to them in their daily lives. And so they assume that the simulation is real and experience another level of simulation on top that Baudrillard calls the simulacra. So what we're really experiencing is something that we know is a simulation, but we don't realize the underlying layer of it is also a simulation, like another fiction on top of the real world.
Right.
And so for like goth mommies and things like that, there's this strange amalgam of like gooner culture from like anime
Hmm.
and like this weird
Yeah.
desire to be countercultural mixing together in this place where then people are taking that idea, mashing it together and coming up with something so far removed from like reality that
Yeah.
this is why like so many people who are terminally online like can't like have a normal conversation with you. They just like don't get it. They don't get that
Right.
like their understanding of the world is a fiction.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before. That's really cool. I
I
like that.
I guess if I were to, I took some notes on it, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
try and
I
write off
appreciate
of
you having
those.
me on. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so that
Nice
was that
meeting
was a
you.
great example. But I guess with the
Yeah, that
feedback
was
loops, you
awesome.
can think about this AI slop proliferates.
Hmm.
It does good on the
Hmm.
algorithm. You know,
Yeah. Oh, big time.
somebody like
Hmm.
the Goth House might see that and try and emulate
Hmm.
that. It does good on
Yep.
the algorithm, so
Hmm.
both the supply and the demand start feeding back into each other, and it grows and grows.
Yes.
So if I had any framework to describe just why this is happening, it almost just feels like runaway capitalism
Yeah.
in cultural form.
Right. Right. I can see that. I can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty dense philosophy,
Yeah.
the Baudrillard stuff, but
Mhm.
I guess you know, if you think about it, social media,
Mhm.
you know, those personas can also be a simulacra.
Right.
I guess I don't wanna get too far ahead of it. So I guess I'll try and
Yeah.
explain. So there's the first layer,
Okay.
which is reality, physical world. You
Mhm.
know, things that exist just on itself, the reference. And then there's the
Right.
simulation. You know, if you have like Google Maps is a simulation, it's a map of the world. The
Right.
Google Maps is not reality; it's a simulation, but it's a map. It still refers to the base reality. And then you
Right.
have the simulacra, which is, you know, referencing the simulation but breaks from it or is a copy, you know. So you have like
Mhm.
AI generated fake news content, stuff like that. Or say, you know, Venice might be reality and our ideas about Venice, pictures about Venice might be the simulation. But then if there's the Venetian in Las Vegas, you know, it's referring to a Venice that it kind of turns into its own thing. It's, you know, it
Right.
becomes a version that people experience as real as its own right. You know, same with Disneyland. It's the fantasy of American life.
Right.
It refers
Mhm.
to nothing but itself. It doesn't refer to an actual base of reality. Instead,
Right.
Disneyland replaces the reality with this idealized version of American life. So if we think
Yeah.
about, so if we apply that to goth culture, this is kind of what I was thinking about, you know, when I was
Mhm.
really trying to think about why is this stuff running away so fast? You know, you've got the base reality, you know, you've got the goth subculture, you know, you've got the music, you've
Mhm.
got the fashion, the identity, the attitudes,
Right.
you know, even like when you look at that online and people are simulating that, you know, it's just like before the advent of AI, it was just regular photos. It still referred back to the actual, you know, culture. But
Right.
then,
Right.
you know, it becomes less about the actual history and politics,
Yeah.
and it becomes more
Mhm.
about the subculture, and then it becomes like this recognized aesthetic package. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if you've
100%.
ever. It seems like people really try and force you guys into that aesthetic package,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you know, how frustrating that is.
Yeah.
But, you know, once you know, you get sort of like the, you know, drift into simulacra with something like, you know, the Goth House, where they're,
Mhm.
you know, they're portraying these aesthetic packages that don't refer back to an actual subculture. They just refer back to itself, this
Yeah.
image of the goth girl that is perpetuating in people's minds,
Right.
the over sexualized
Right.
fetish version. And then it drifts
Right.
fully from reality when you get AI girls being like, leftism is a death cult.
Yeah. That's that one always just kills me.
Yeah.
It's not even and not the cool kind, she said.
And not the cool kind. So,
Kind of, I mean, that's cool. What?
with all that being said, with
Mhm.
all that being said, do you still feel like when you interact with the goth subculture, does it still feel connected to reality, or does it feel more like simulacra to you these days?
It honestly kind of just depends where I'm at, like which social media I'm on and who I'm talking to. I've done a really good job at centering my algorithm to show me the real, authentic goths. And then, I have people that will send me like these AI goths and the goth house and, you know, so it's interesting because I feel like I get a good amount of both right now, and I like a lot of people in my comments will say, "Oh, I hate the goth subculture now. It's been watered down, and I hate being goth now, and being alt and goth isn't cool anymore. What whatever." And it kind of upsets me because it's like, I swear, like, we are trying. Like, I feel like my biggest advice is just to look out for the good goths and the real goths, and if you see the ones that's not in reality, right, you just kind of just say you're not interested, block them, whatever you can do. Because I mean, and even when I'm out and about, there's not a lot of people that look like me, and a lot of people like online will be like, "There's so many goths nowadays," blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just go outside. Like, either you're not gonna see a ton of goths unless you're at a goth club, or a goth club, and goth stores, or like, thrift stores. Like, that's kind of where you'll find us, really. So it's interesting. I feel like I've done a good job at making it a reality more for me on my end, but for others, I could see why they would feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, interesting fact I read was, 1 in 5 Americans has talked to an AI romantic interest. And I know there's a lot of, and that, that's across a lot of divides. Everybody seems susceptible to it. So, I appreciate your work for, grounding the baby bats, as you call them, back into
Yeah.
reality,
Yeah.
kind of, saying like, hey, this
Right.
stuff isn't real. This stuff is
Yeah.
a fetishization. This doesn't represent our culture. I think
Right.
it's very valuable work. Something I was also wondering was, we originally used the word infiltration when, I kind of said, like, when I was advertising this podcast, that we were going to say the infiltration of the right wing into goth culture. But somebody left a comment where they kind of disagreed with that analysis. They said it was more
Yeah.
like a splintering off, saying that these elements had always kind of been there. And now there's more sort of a bifurcation of the scene.
Yeah.
Would you
Right.
say you have one makes more sense than the other to you?
Yeah. I feel like, granted, it's always been here. Conservative has always been around, and I feel like they kind of have always infiltrated. There was this movie that I watched. It was with Daniel Radcliffe, and he's like an undercover cop, and he goes in to try to catch the Nazis or something. But those those Nazis that he was around and surrounding himself with, they were playing punk music. They looked very punk rock. And that my partner goes, see, that's why people get so confused, because they do listen to the same stuff mostly, and they kind of act like they're like this rebellion and, against the system in some sort of way. So it does kind of feel like they kind of have always been around. So I do kind of agree with that. But I feel like with the rise of social media, they kind of have been infiltrating a lot more. And the rise of MAGA and Trump and all that stuff, I do feel like, I don't know if they're going to like splinter off and go into their own directions, but it does feel like they're trying to kind of rewrite what goth is.
It does feel like that. You mentioned that, they were often listening to a lot of the same stuff in the beginning. At its core, I think it's fair to say goth emerged as like something that aestheticizes, kind of decay, melancholy to a degree.
Yeah.
The collapse
Yes.
of meaning, and turning that into something that you can derive power from,
Right.
specifically, but it kind of, all these themes of alienation, feeling like an outcast, against the mainstream, against the establishment. That's at the root of goth culture from the very beginning. But
Yeah.
those very
100%.
aesthetics of, like, decay, collapse, loss of meaning, melancholy, seems like they kind of get reinterpreted, if you could even call it
Right.
that, more like co-opted by
Yeah. Right.
the right, you know.
Right.
It's they can take these themes of, you know, like decay and you could say even like death and, you know, nostalgia for like the Victorian time, even, you know, kind of like drawing from a
Right.
mythic past and reframe it in a political narrative where, you know, it's much more traditionalist and, you
Yeah.
know, saying like everything is decaying. So, you know, we have to go back to tradition. This is all happening because
Right.
we abandoned tradition. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's almost like same mood, but
Mm-hmm.
you know what you do with that, whether or not you actually make it something empowering and goth, or whether or not
Mm-hmm.
you just use the aesthetics and co-opt them for something that just embraces conservatism and tradition. It feels like the choice has always kind of been there, but
Right.
there's definitely more of a shift to the right, you know, in
Yeah.
recent years, especially after Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Big time.
I guess I'm trying to think of what else I want to ask you.
Yeah.
You know, would you say that, you know, kind of you identify with those themes of, you know, perhaps like melancholy and, you know, I guess that aestheticization of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find the words for it.
Dark and
Yeah.
morbid, or it's
Yeah.
just yeah. Ever since I was young too, which is interesting. This is gonna sound really weird, but when I was really young, I would rent this book from my Christian school. It's just a book of mummies, like real mummies. And I just had this crazy fascination with it. Just like I would keep checking it out and it like freaked me out, but like I oddly like was so intrigued by it and I was just like, "Whoa, this is crazy." And I can't remember how old I was. It was definitely sometime in elementary school. And as I grew up, watching everything with like a dark Sweeney Todd and Nightmare for Christmas, even
Oh yes,
things
yes,
like that. I was,
classic.
yeah, I was very drawn to, um, and just even like, I didn't start really hearing too much of the music. I probably started out with punk music, um, and then that started gradually. I started hearing goth music, and I was just like, "Whoa, I really like this. This feels like me. Like I feel like this is what's going to be playing just wherever I walk, type of thing." And I don't know, I've just always been very drawn to all that stuff, darkness and beauty in darkness and horror movies. I'm a big horror fanatic, so
Yeah,
just stuff like
and it's
that.
almost like all that stuff, you know, there's a certain, you know, horror in growing up in
Hmm.
the, you know, the dogmatic Christian, you know,
Yeah.
framework. So
Hmm.
taking these themes of decay and alienation and morbidity and death and darkness, and then turning
Hmm.
them against dominant systems, you know, like patriarchy
Hmm.
and capitalism. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's, you know, that with the political roots of the music, I'm sure that spoke to you as
Hmm.
well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I don't know what it is, but from a young age, I was very just defiant in going to church and I mean, probably like it's boring, whatever. Especially Mormon church. Mormon church is extremely excruciating, boring. But even when my mom like would tell me this is how the school system works, this is what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. You have to do this and this, and I was like, from a very young age, I'm like, Mom, that's bullshit. She's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. But now here I am, trying to do something about it, or at least use my voice to speak up on it. I don't know.
You're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. I mean, you're
Thank
approaching
you.
100K on Instagram.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that's crazy.
that's pretty good. But, you know,
Yeah.
it really speaks to somebody. I think it's almost like a Rorschach test, where you
Right.
can look into the darkness, and whether
Right.
or not you see something that can be, leveraged against the powers that be in the darkness, or you
Mm-hmm.
look into the darkness and you think, oh, well, this is representative of a decay and we need to go back to traditional values and we gotta
Right.
red pill ourselves in the darkness,
Sure
black
anymore.
pill
Yeah.
ourselves, I guess, you know.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
So it says a lot
Definitely.
about, what kind of goth you are. And
Yeah.
do you notice what you would call, do you think people either land on one of those two sides, or do you think there are people in the middle? Like, do you think there's such thing as an apolitical goth?
I've ran into a few people that say that they're apolitical and they just don't really associate themselves with politics. To that, I say that you're pretty privileged to not have to associate with politics. Um, it's like it's hard to say like, oh, you're not goth, and you know, but I genuinely feel like you have to have some sort of rage against the machine, like to be goth. If you're just apolitical and you're, politics don't bug me, I'm just gonna do me or whatever, it seems like you're really disconnected.
Yeah. I um
Hmm.
I came across an AI goth song the other
Oh
day
no.
on my feed,
Oh no.
and the pain I felt was immeasurable. I think I started getting
Yeah.
recommended goth stuff because I started checking out your content,
Oh,
and
that's
then
so
it's
funny.
already feeding me slop.
It's like, here you go. Yeah, no, literally, they are pushing so many AI goth artists that I have to look up before I post because I'm like, I don't want to use an AI goth song. So I like Google. I'm like, this AI? Is this AI? I don't want to. Because I have accidentally used an AI goth song.
Oh
And
wow.
my viewers were, yeah, they were like, hey, this is AI. And I was like, fuck.
Fucking
I'm
grifters,
so sorry.
man. People just like, they'll take a
So mad.
recognizable aesthetic, they'll
Mm-hmm.
repackage it, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll sell it out without
But
any heart or soul to it.
none whatsoever. And I was like, damn, that could have been good if it was real,
So are
but
we are
it's
we gonna get the
not.
goth guide to fighting AI soon?
That's actually, I am doing my own video. I have it sent off to, oh no, I haven't recorded it yet. I lied. I'm so sorry. I recorded the fetishization video. Um, I did, I wrote a whole script for the AI video, but so many new things just keep popping up that I feel like I just can't record it just yet. I feel like I am going to record it pretty soon, but a lot of the other ideas that we have with our goth group is like, we're going to do a mutual aid video, the do's and don'ts, what's a scam, what's not. So that's going to be hopefully here pretty soon. They take they take a while to make, but that's one of our ideas. I think we're also going to do kind of a fun, cutesy one, which was we kind of discussed because we do a lot of seriousness. But um, I think that's a great idea too. How take down AI as a goth. That would be a fun one, actually.
How do you think goths can mobilize to provide mutual aid to people?
Well, we kind of already, have our own setup on how we do it. We have our own group chats, and we share it with each other, and we post to our stories, and obviously donate when we can. Um, we help each other if, like this one's kind of seeming iffy. Is this one real or not? Because there are some that are scams, and we just really come together and help each other. Like if there's always someone in the chat responding. Like I mean, not everyone's there at once, but we always at least have someone there for you when you need them. And I think if you want to be part of that, just reach out to a very political goth that you see online, and you'll probably be able, as long as they're not like, performative, you'll be able to be part of that.
Absolutely. And to my Denver audience who is watching right now, you can always hit up me if you're looking to get involved in local mutual aid efforts.
Yep.
One thing, a strategy we've been trying is to really mobilize different niche subcultures, you know, into doing mutual aid. Like we had an event called Smiling Comrades, which was kind of based on the Smiling Friends show that's been going around. And we had like all these people in cosplay just like passing out mutual aid items to
Hmm.
you know, people across town, and people were incredibly grateful. You know, we had live music as well, so we brought music to people. Um, One of the things that I've done before is I've dressed in clown. You know, I do clowning
Fun.
myself, so I've gone with my clown friends, you know, in full, you know, makeup and got the clown nose and everything, and we'll just pass out mutual aid. And it
That's awesome.
kind of lets people know that like the freaks are on their side. So
Mm-hmm.
I would
100%.
love to see the goths out there doing distribution in the streets.
Yes. I as of right now in my life, I don't go to go out very often. I don't have a car right now. But when I do go out in the Portland area, I was actually in Portland today. I was just walking around. We were walking around, and so many like small businesses had like, you know, free Palestine, immigrants are welcome here, no hate. They hand out like insane amounts of just like, I'll post on my story today a little handout that I got that said, support Gaza and what you can do.
I
And you
saw
could just
that.
click the QR code. Yeah. And um, when I go out and I do see these protests, I do see a lot of, it's like, you'll see, your typical white people, Portland's, a little hippie in that sense, but it's a lot of alternative people. Like when I go out and I see these protests and I go out into when I'm actually out and about, it's relieving to go out and about because I am online a lot and I see all these posters and I see all these people like handing out stuff. Like we were even handed this mutual aid thing where we can go out, they'll text us and take food to someone. I just don't have a car right now, so I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't do that right now. But I'm keeping this paper for when I can. Um, so I need to be able to, as a full-time mom, I homeschool and everything. So keeping friends and doing activities and going out is very hard for me at the moment. But when I can, that's something I really want to do to start mobilizing IRL, not just online. That is
Yeah.
definitely a goal for me.
The online stuff is very important because
Yeah,
you can, you know, you just have such a massive reach online that you can't necessarily,
right.
you know, get in person. And a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
battles, unfortunately, are being fought online. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know, if we don't have a presence on these
definitely.
platforms, you know, the Jake Munros of the world might get to some of the baby bats.
Right. Oh, definitely. And I've had a lot of baby bats message me and be like, I was a follower of Jake Monroe, and then I saw his video about you, and then I saw your video, and like, I'm so glad that I saw you instead, and I didn't realize that Goth was political. And I'm like, yeah, welcome in. It's crazy because I do get messages all the time that are like, "You helped me change my perspective, and I really appreciate what you do," and all this stuff. And it's really encouraging to, push me to do more and get, our voices out there as much as possible. When I first started this account, I was mainly just gaming, like, Twitch gaming, and then I started becoming a little bit more confident in my knowledge and how I use my voice. And Instagram does a great job at trying to shadow ban me though.
Oh my, yeah, yeah.
So sometimes I have to kind of fight that, but I just kind of keep posting. I'm like, regardless, I'm still gonna get this out there.
Anybody posting about our friends in Palestine, they Meta doesn't like
Hmm.
that.
No, no, they do not at all. at all. It's frustrating. I've made a few mutual aid videos for helping some people that I talk to in Palestine, and it is always so hard to get it traction. But thanks to the Goth community and the people that I have, I'll just send it to the Goth community and they just repost and reshare and comment, and it's really awesome. Trying to fight the algorithm.
I'll have to get in touch with you guys then.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm really trying to get the word out for Dr. Bara.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, I will share it as well, and I can even send it into my mutual aid or our mutual aid groups
I guess,
as well, or
just
invite you even.
thinking about final questions here to somebody who maybe like they like the aesthetic of goth, maybe they don't know what's going on in Palestine, maybe
Right.
they're vaguely like, they support gay and trans rights, they don't like what Trump is doing, but
Right.
they maybe they've got the Sheen collar off of, or
Yeah.
maybe they've got,
Machine.
yeah, they're not fully, let's say, kind of cognizant of the roots
Right.
of goth. How would you say, if they're curious of kind of getting out of that, how where would you say they should start?
I think they should start with just researching um and doing their own research. I think going out of your way to learn is such an important step. I feel like actually researching and doing what you can to educate yourself. Education is power. So, I mean, and even, Baby Bats messaged me and asked me what they think. Is this goth or this not goth? And I'm not the goth police. I'm not an elitist. I just basically always bring it back to the core values, you know. And I think that, um, reaching out to other goths as well is very helpful. People within the community. Now, if you go and ask someone like the Goth House, they're not going to give you any answers. So you got to be careful who you're asking, but they are out there.
If you had any words for Jake Monroe, if he happened to be watching, what would you say?
I think his content is hurtful. I think his content is dangerous. I think this manosphere of what he's trying to be is only more hurtful towards people of color in our community, trans, LGBTQ, women. I mean, there are a lot of male goths, but the goth is mostly made up of women and LGBTQ and trans, and people of color. So he's attacking the entire subculture. And I feel like if he were to maybe switch around his ideas, like the goth community is very welcoming. I don't know if he's forgiven at this point, or if we can forgive and forget at this point, but if he had gone the other route, I think he would have found a really caring community.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is a really caring community that you're building, from the mutual aid to just spreading the word that you are your identity is not an object.
Right. Yep.
It's not for men. It's not for the male gaze.
It's not. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
My a viewer in chat, Jazzy, said that we need free Congo too. That is 100% correct. Congo and Sudan.
In Sudan, yes. And yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Very important.
Thank you for that. And if there's anything you had to say to the people out there watching, what would it be?
I would say that with a lot of people who like with all the boycotting and all this stuff, who say, "Oh, it doesn't do anything. Your activism doesn't do anything." Let me be an example that it actually does do something, and boycotting does work. You start if it seems if it seems like a lot at once, take baby steps. You could start off just by boycotting McDonald's or start off by boycotting what you can. I know sometimes um, a lot of people will get this idea of like, oh, don't ever go to Walmart ever again, which is fair and you probably shouldn't. But every now and then again, like if you absolutely have to, don't feel ashamed as well and don't shame others for having to do something like that. Um, the point is to shop there less as much as possible
Mhm.
and eventually, hopefully, completely. I don't agree with buying from Shein 100%. Like, that is something that I think is completely avoidable. Like Shein and Temu. I don't know how to ever say
Yeah,
it.
Timu, I think.
Um, yeah, there's other options like thrift apps like Depop and um, just look up your local marketplace. There's free stuff communities online as well. I get a lot of stuff from there. Um, and your activism, just start small. And even if you don't want to be a full-blown activist, just do these small steps and it's a collective conscience at this point.
I would say for boycotting, one of the things they
Hmm.
talk about is obviously no ethical consumption under capitalism. There's
Yeah.
a million
Yeah.
targets we
Hmm.
could choose for a boycott, but
Right.
specifically
Right.
having
Right.
a smaller group of targets that we can put immense pressure on together, that can
Hmm.
be really
Yes.
effective. So if you go to
Right.
bdsmovement.net,
Hmm.
you can find, the list of companies like McDonald's and Starbucks
Right.
that are kind of the
Hmm.
focus of the BDS
Focus
movement right
ones.
now.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
I would also say to the people that activism does make a difference. I originally started trying to get some anti AI protests off the ground because
Oh,
I
nice.
hated Uber Eats delivery bots. I thought they were stupid. I really hated the
I didn't know
robot.
that.
I hated the robots.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
we're gonna do a march against machines. I hate the
Fuck yeah.
drones. I hate
Hmm.
technology. Like
Hmm.
I'm full like Luddite at this point. So
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
think it would do much. I thought it would be an outlet for our anger, but it kind of
Hmm.
blossomed into this anti-AI movement, and now we're working with the mayor of Denver, on data
Wow.
centers and surveillance
Wow.
cameras and stuff like that.
That's amazing.
We'll see if it
Hmm.
actually goes our direction, but we have had some influence on some decisions already.
Hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I also hate it that much. So it'd be interesting to see what I can do here where I'm at about that. I don't know if they're going to be putting any data sensors in this area, but
Yeah, I
hopefully
would
not.
imagine Portland would be pretty opposed to that.
Yeah, Portland's pretty good on top of a lot of the stuff. I mean, and it's awesome going out and seeing everyone out and about and all the collective just all of us coming together. Um yeah.
But sometimes it just takes one kind of person to get the ball rolling, and
Yeah.
then it snowballs. Like, the way
Yeah.
you've put these amazing projects together, these, these many part video essays with many
Mhm.
collaborators. I
Mhm.
couldn't have done any of the stuff without the community I have. So
Right.
that is the
Right.
message, I think I want to leave every Trash Heap podcast off with, which is find your
Yes.
community. It is out there.
Mhm.
Community is not
Yep.
optional, it is mandatory.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to say?
No, just thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I was very excited. I mean, like I said earlier, I haven't really had someone ask me questions before, so that was the first time for me, and it was really fun. And I appreciate you
All right.
and all the viewers.
Thank you so much. Have a